Hi, everybody. Janet Eichorst here. Today, I want to talk about dependency. Ooh, this is so important in our lives because it can get in the way. Unhealthy dependency can get in the way in so many circumstances. How do I receive? How do I give and do it cleanly? How do I do that without having a dependency on someone else? How do I receive without being dependent? How do I give without having somebody be dependent on me? And I tell you, there's certain times in my life where I have no idea. That's what it feels like. I'll get in a situation where, whether it's a new person or a new circumstance that I haven't been in before, and sometimes it takes a bit to figure out, and this is where I get to work with the trial and error earth that we're living on. Because there is so much conditioning and stuff that's gotten in the way of healthy relationship dynamics. So I'll speak for myself. I grew up with dysfunction. I had a great family life. I'm not dissing my family or my parents. And there was dysfunction. I don't know anybody that didn't have dysfunction in their lives growing up. And what that does is that the regular developmental stages that we go through in a completely healthy environment, if there's dysfunction there, if there's trauma there, where I've had my share of trauma, it can stop and not allow those developmental cycles to complete. So here I am as an adult, and I'm getting to complete some of these developmental cycles and lift weights and grow muscles so that I can have healthy relationships. And it blows me away sometimes how many dynamics that I'm still doing that aren't as healthy as they could be. And, I clean it up, I make adjustments. And fortunately for me, that I don't judge myself like I used to when I find out that this isn't working for me anymore. And this is not really based on unconditional love. My behavior has not been always based in unconditional love. That's not meaning that I am intending to cause harm, but there's some version of not honoring myself or other in my relationships. So I know sometimes in my life when I get frustrated, I'm like, can't somebody else just do this for me? And there are those moments where I really do want to have somebody take care of me. And sometimes that can be appropriate and healthy. And sometimes it's based on a level of thinking that I don't have everything I need. And it's from a blast from the past where I still want to be dependent on somebody. Now, I don't really like admitting that at over 60 years of age, over 60 trips around the sun, and that's true for me. So, dependency on either level. I mean, I think about that sometimes, and I have a lot of experience in relationships and addictive processes. People that have been addicted to some sort of substance or relationships, process addictions. And so, there's that thing when you go to help somebody, and it doesn't have to be even with somebody that's in an addiction, but what's the appropriate level of action for me to take? And sometimes I've dug really deep because there's moments where I know it's the right thing for me to show up and help somebody. And it's not in that dependency way. It's that like nudge from spirit where it's like, look, we've handed you the baton and you need to do this. Right. And sometimes I don't wanna, and I'm like, okay, in those moments, I want to show up. It happened today. I'd gone to the grocery store and I had some food, and I was just like, "Oh, you need to offer this woman some food." And it wasn't a big "I don't want to," but it was that was an example of a nudge from spirit. It's like, ask this woman if she wants this, right? And I know when that's happened and people have offered me things at those moments, it's important. And when I get those nudges from spirit, from consciousness itself, God, whatever word you want to use, I want to take those nudges. And there are times where those are pure and those are clean. And there's other times where if I continued to support someone in that way, like in this instance, if I went out hunting for that woman without that spiritual alignment, thinking that she needs something I have, I could have a dependency on giving her something or having her develop a dependency on me. And that I don't want. Right? I want her to have her clear and sovereign life, and I want me to have the same. I want that for everybody. Everybody has so many choices and so much potential, whether we know it or not. So, to get this dependency angle down, what do we do about it? Like, what's your mechanism for determining? Do you have an internal feeling that you're like, ooh, and do you pay attention to that or do you ignore it? There's oftentimes where the phone will ring and it seems inconvenient, right? And I don't make a big deal out of it anymore because this mechanism has been tuned up mostly so that if I'm supposed to answer the phone, I do. It doesn't mean that I don't have resistance sometimes, but I know when the commitments I've made to people and when it's important for me to do so, right? Like, I want to be a dependable person. I want to be reliable, and I want to do it in a clean way. And that also means that if I don't want to do something with somebody, I say I don't want to do it versus saying yes when I mean no. All my insides are saying no. Right? That's another level of unhealthy relationship that doesn't do anybody any good. And when I've done situations or done things like that where all my internal says no and I say yes, it usually doesn't work out very well. And I also want to say the yeses when part of that essence inside of me is afraid. If it's a yes, and even if I'm scared, I want to do the yes. Right? So I'm just going to take a breath here. Let's all take a breath here. So the intention, the invitation is to have the healthiest version of relationships with everybody in your life. Your coworkers, your partner, your family, your neighbors. Where you show up when it's appropriate and you don't show up when it's not appropriate. You receive from your neighbors or from whoever in a clean way. And some of those unhealthy dynamics in relationships is like feeling guilty for taking. It's like, no. Receiving for those people, which I know are a lot of you on this call, receiving can be very challenging. That's why I did a podcast on it a couple ago. It's like, can you receive? Are you open enough to receive? And today, what I'm asking is, can you receive cleanly? All right. And none of us are squeaky clean all the time, right? Sometimes for me, I receive something and then I got to clean up my response to it internally. It has nothing to do with the other person. It just has something to do with there's some residual patterning or wounding or something inside of me that I just discovered. Whew. And so with this, I just want to bring up the word obligation just came up. All right. So this is the concept of obligation interfering with my ability to receive or to give. That's tough. When somebody gives me something and I really don't want it, sometimes I say yes because it really feels like it's appropriate on some level. And it has to do with hurt feelings, or it could be a really tender situation, or that person really needs to give. And a lot of times it's just like, no, thank you. I really appreciate the sentiment. I really appreciate that you're offering that to me, and I don't want it. Very important. And the same thing with giving gifts. I mean, this is getting into the giving and receiving dynamic. Do I feel obligated to give something to someone when it's not in alignment for me? Do I want to overgive out of some level of insecurity in me? So we really are looking at relationship dynamics. A lot of us have gone through processes, and I will include myself in this and speak from myself. I went through a long period of my healing journey where it was more solitary, and I needed time away from the general public, from the responsibilities that I had had prior to that time. I mean, you could have called it a healing crisis. You could have called it just a healing period, or I really needed that time. And then there came a point where it was important for me to start to engage with other people and in my world where I hadn't been. And that's important. And so when that happens, when I go from a more solitary experience where I'm not having a lot of contact with other people, and then I go to in a situation where I have a lot of contact with people, that can be very challenging. And that's when I really need to practice uber self-care. Pay attention to dependencies. Can I receive? Can I give? Did I say that the right way? Did I say that with love? Did I mean it in the way that I said it? Do I mean it in the way it was received? And just paying attention to my tone of voice, my actions. It's tough if you're not used to being around other people and all of a sudden you're around other people. That can be really challenging. Where is my level of stimulation? Where is it? That is my responsibility to care for myself in such a way that if I get overstimulated, I have a way for myself to get back into a place where I'm not overstimulated, right? We're talking about that fight or flight mechanism. Let's just take a breath here. We went through a lot and jumped right in, and we've covered a lot of territory here already. So let's just breathe together. And the invitation is to invite in a level of yourself, to have access to a level of yourself that's so pure, so loving, and so you. Ooh, so I can feel for some people there's a level of, how would I want to say it? It's kind of like a child that's not really sure, an insecure child. Is this okay? We've talked a lot about relationships. And, for myself, when I was going through the healing periods, right, I was healing a lot of that inner child stuff, right? A lot of that conditioning, trauma. And so that's what gets engaged when I interact more with people when I haven't been. And that's another level of becoming more of my whole self, allowing that adult version of me, that authentic, true, strong version of me to support myself when I'm feeling insecure, when I'm feeling scared, when I want to be dependent on other people, when I want to be controlling and dominate other people out of fear or insecurity, that lack of control. I have that ability. That pure essence of me is always here, and that ability to pause, access those aspects of me that know the where I can hold myself, have compassion for myself, whatever I'm feeling, and act appropriately, even if I'm all stirred up on the inside. And this can also be true with, I want to say, in an overexcited state. Sometimes that super excited state is non embodied. I'm outside of myself. I'm not living from my core. And I don't ever recommend living outside of your core where you step out of yourself like that, right? That's where it's just not a good place to be energetically. It's where I set myself up for harm in certain ways. And that when I'm outside of myself, that access to my God consciousness isn't super clear. So, overexcitement. Do you have a way to recognize when you've stepped out of yourself in that overexcited way? I know today how to have that level of excitement without leaving myself. That's way more fun. And it's much more enjoyable, I'll say. And on this trip that I recently took, I had plenty of opportunities to step out of myself in excitement, and I don't like that anymore. My whole sensory being, does not get to be involved when I'm outside of myself. I'm not aligned. There's parts of me that aren't present. I want all of me in a level of wholeness to have this experience here. I really have so much gratitude for all the beauty that I get to experience. One day on this recent trip, I drove over 700 miles. I don't know, 700 and some miles a day because I got close to home and I thought, what time is it? I need to go home. Right? And it was appropriate. And I checked it out, called the hotel. They let me cancel without paying for the room. And I thought, all right. So Gracie and I came home. And it's amazing the things that I can do today when I stay present enough to myself. I can do things that I didn't think were possible. I mean, if you would have told me before I left you're going to drive, 700 plus miles in a day and really be okay, I'd be like, who you talking to? Right? I wouldn't think that I could do that and really be okay with it. That's a lot of miles, right? And I felt like I really took care of myself. I really did what I needed to do, and it was the right thing. So, relationship dynamics, and of course, what I'm talking about is my relationship with me, my relationship with the all that is, and how I hold that space so that when I relate to you, I don't have those unhealthy dependencies, those unhealthy dynamics. They might come up as options, and a lot of times that's how it looks to me. I come to a fork in the road, and for me, it sometimes feel like, hang on a minute. What's really happening here? What are the choices available to me? And which one do I want to make? It's a beautiful moment right here. I have so much love for you. I want you to make the best choices that you possibly can and have the best level of relationships, clean, clear, respectful, honest, that you possibly can. That's what's possible for here on earth, even when either one of us or all of us are going through very challenging times. or even when we're having a really great time. We don't have to live outside of ourselves, and we can live with that level of pure, unconditional love. So much love to you. Please like, please share, and please comment. Thank you so much for those of you that are commenting. You know who you are, and I just to get to feel and give a little love bomb when I interact with you in that way. So, bye for now. Till next time, many blessings.